United Nations Security Council has yet again failed to build consensus over the Israel-Hamas war. This as the Council failed to adopt two rival draft resolutions proposed by the US and Russia. UNSC has now been unable to pass 4 draft resolutions on the ongoing conflict within 10 days. So what were the latest 2 resolutions that the Council could not pass? We will tell you in the next few minutes. Now, the US-led resolution calls for pauses in fighting rather than a complete ceasefire to allow humanitarian aid access to Gaza. A pause is less formal and shorter than a ceasefire. Now, the US draft mentioned that the inherent right of all states to self-defense. It called for compliance with international law and for Hamas to release all its captives. The Permanent Security Council members, China and Russia, vetoed US resolution. 10 members voted in favor, while there were 2 abstentions from Brazil and Mozambique. 3 were against, including China, Russia and the UAE. Now, US envoy to the UN expressed disappointment with the veto on the resolution.
The United States is deeply disappointed that Russia and China vetoed this resolution. A resolution that, as I've said, was strong and it was balanced. That was the product of consultations with members of this council. We did listen to all of you. We incorporated feedback and we worked to forge consensus around a resolution that would send a clear message to the world.
Now let's see what the Russia-led resolution was all about. It called for an immediate, durable and fully respected humanitarian ceasefire. It also condemned all violence and hostilities against civilians. 4 council members voted in favor. These were China, Gabon, Russia and UAE, while 10 abstained and 2 voted against the resolution, the UK and the US. Russian ambassador also showed regret as the resolution could not garner enough votes to be adopted.
We regret the fact that the Security Council was not in a position to use yet another opportunity given to it to respond to the unprecedented crisis in the Middle East. The reason why we believe the US draft to be categorically unacceptable is something that I've already laid out in detail. It is very unfortunate that members of the committee that have dug into the national positions were not brave enough to display strategic wisdom and support the Russian proposed text.
Now let's see where other countries stand on the Gaza resolution. China, while voting against the US, said US resolution lacks strongest calls necessary for a full ceasefire. And the text of resolution is evasive on the key issue of ending the fighting. While the UAE said most pressing needs right now is humanitarian ceasefire, hostage release, humanitarian access. The UAE envoy added that the stakes are too high and the Council must step up. On the other hand, the UK expressed disappointment as the US resolution was vetoed. It said Russia's draft failed to recognize Israel's right to self-defense. And with the US resolution, UNSC could have condemned Hamas attacks. Now, as the UN debates the issue, let us tell you how a UNSC resolution gets adopted. Now, the resolution must be supported by at least 9 out of 15 Council members. And if any one of the 5 permanent members vetoes, that means votes against it, the resolution will fail to be approved. The 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council are China, France, Russia, UK and the US. Now, Susan Tehrani further updates us on the competing UN resolutions on the crisis in the Gaza Strip. Listen in.
It's becoming clear that the only thing permanent members of the United Nations Security Council can agree on when it comes to global conflicts is to, well, disagree. Once again, on Wednesday, 2 competing resolutions regarding the Middle East were vetoed. The first was put forth by the United States, which called for the right of Israel to defend itself. That resolution was vetoed by China and Russia. And then Russia put forth a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire. That was vetoed by the United States and UK. Of course, these developments come just one day after a contentious high-level meeting at the Security Council, where after the meeting, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations called for the resignation of UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. After, during his speech to the Council, Guterres said that the Hamas attacks against Israel did not happen in a vacuum. We are now getting reports that some member states have been talking about putting forth a draft resolution at the General Assembly for an emergency session. At the General Assembly, there is no veto-wielding power, and while those resolutions are non-binding, member states insist that they do carry political weight. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.